Welcome, we're glad you're here. First, I want to tell you about Las Cumbres. Our organization began its services in Los Alamos County 50 years ago. We currently provide a wide range of services in Santa Fe, Rio Arriba, Taos, and Los Alamos counties. You can check out our website and the services we offer in each community. All services are free of charge. And thanks to a grant from Los Alamos County, we have expanded our services in Los Alamos. So definitely check out that Los Alamos calendar and see what's coming up. So today we'll be answering some questions about our favorite sensory activities. Some questions we often hear is, how do I get my child to touch new textures? Or I'm stuck in a rut, what are some new ideas for sensory play? Or what are some ideas for incorporating smell or sound or movement? And how do I deal with the mess is probably the question I hear most often. So we will get to that soon. First I want to introduce myself. I'm Camille Westcott, and I have been an occupational therapist for over 20 years. I have 2 kids that are teenagers now. And when I was preparing for this presentation, it really brought back a lot of memories of the things I really enjoyed when they were little. And Patty's going to introduce herself.
Hi there, I'm Patty Delgado. I'm an occupational therapist as well, and I have been in the field of occupational therapy for a long time, 30 years to be exact. I have been at Las Cumbres. I started 18 years ago, and then that was just before Camille started, and then I took a 5-year break so that I could be home with our 3rd child, who is now 15. And when she was 5, I went back to Las Cumbres. So I've been there for quite a while as well. And yeah, we're excited to be able to share some of these fun activities. And I will go ahead and get our presentation started. And feel free to, if you have particular questions, there's a place on the Las Cumbres website where you can ask any question and somebody will get back with you. And after this presentation today, you can ask in that website, and somebody can get back to you right away. They'll be waiting for your questions. All right. Favorite sensory activities for young children. And I wanted to just emphasize that, we all grew up learning about the 5 senses, taste, smell, sight, touch, hearing. But there's more that we have, and they're complex, and some people say we have a lot more, but some of the other ones we're going to talk about today are vestibular, which is, our sense of balance and how our body determines where we are. And proprioception is the sense of where our body is in space, so that we know that if we hold our arm up here, we know that our arm's up, and if it's down, it's down, or if our head is bent, or all the different things that we know where our body is in space. And then interoception, this is something that's come into more popularity to talk about lately. And it's basically just being more aware of our body's internal state. So, is our heart rate up? Is our bladder full? Are we hungry? Are we sleepy? All of those things of just how our body is feeling and how we're coping with that.
So when we're thinking about what kind of activities to do with our kids, or how to approach activities with their kids, it's important to think about how they respond to the world, how they respond to all the experiences they have. So there's a couple of basic patterns to think about. So one is a kid or a person who's overreactive. So when we say overreactive, we mean it takes a really small thing for the person to notice what's happening. So a very small sound you hear outside gets a reaction. Or I'm amazed by kids who notice the seeds in bananas. Like, I didn't even know there were seeds in bananas till I started working with kids who were really sensitive and noticed those teeny tiny little things. So what we would call overreactive, people would commonly call picky or fussy or colicky or cranky. And I think it's important to know that sometimes those kids need occupational therapy. It's not that they're purposely making your life difficult. It's that those little things they notice so easily, and you can't just say, oh, that'll go away, or just ignore it. Like they don't know how to block it out, and they need help with that. And sometimes, if it interferes with their daily life, then it's definitely something you should think about getting therapy for. But, if it's just one thing, like my son wouldn't have tomato sauce on his pasta, that's not interfering with daily life. So when you have those kids that are overreactive, like every little thing is challenging, then you really want to plan the activities to keep it short and simple. You don't want to put a ton of effort into it and then they only do it for 1 minute. So you definitely want to plan the easiest, simplest activities, and just keep your expectations free, that if they just touch it once, that's great. If they touch it more than that, wonderful, but keep your expectations at baby steps. That's what I'm trying to say. You want to go to the next slide, Patty? And then there's the opposite of that, is the kids that are underreactive. And those are the kids that are more likely to get referred, or less likely to get referred to therapy. But it's the Tigger type kids that are bouncing off the walls, and because they're always looking for more sensation, because it takes something really big for their body to feel just right. And those kids, the common things, or kids or people, we might say are couch potatoes, or lazy, or unmotivated, or hyper and bouncing off the walls like Tigger. The taking a bigger sensation to react to makes me think of my kids in the middle of the night. When the smoke detector goes off, they can sleep right through it. So to wake them up in the middle of the night takes a really big sensation. They underreact to noise when they're sleeping. And then the next slide talks about when it's mixed. So it's more common, probably, that you overreact in one area and underreact in another area. And I can use myself as an example there. Like, I'm really sensitive to noises. I can't handle high-pitched noises. I can't handle a lot of noise. But like when it comes to food, I love a lot of textures. I love a lot of colors. Like, I seek out sensations when it comes to food. So that's an example of being mixed. And Patty put in a nice example of liking massages but hating roller coasters. So like that deep pressure feels good, that tightness of a massage, that firmness, but that movement of a roller coaster could be challenging. So that's an example of mixed. So let's see. For the really sensitive kids, we talked about keeping it short. And for the kids that are needing those big sensations, that's when you're going to expect to probably spend a longer amount of time. Like, make sure you cut out a piece of time to stick with it for a while. And those mixed kids, the important thing is to be flexible, because they're really unpredictable. You don't know how they're going to react. So really thinking about your expectations beforehand and keeping them simple, I think is going to make you feel more successful when you're doing these sensory activities.
All right. So in terms of sight, we know that when babies are first born, their vision is not fully developed. And I'm gonna just play a quick video to show you all what that looks like.
Wondering how babies see the world? Every infant's sight develops at a different rate, but here's a general timeline. Most newborns can spot things that are right beside them with their side vision. Their central vision isn't strong yet. Within 2 weeks, some babies notice light and dark shapes. Their attention also may be drawn to bright colors and big shapes.
So you
At
can
about
see
1
the
month, a
background is
baby may
getting
start focusing on mom
a
or dad,
little bit
but not for
more
long.
clear.
They're still mainly interested in close by objects and other sights. Between 2 and 4 months, those adorable little eyes may start to follow and focus on moving objects. In months 5 through 8, some babies start to recognize their
And you all
parents
remember
by
when your
sight.
baby started
They may
to
also get better
follow
at
you
noticing
across
how
the
far
room?
things
That was
are
very
away from them, an
exciting,
ability
and when they
called
could
depth
actually
perception.
recognize you.
Plus, colors may really start to pop.
And then they start
By
to
months
grab
9 through
things. They
12,
know how
a
to
baby's depth
grab, and
perception may become
they can
good
see
enough that
colors.
they're able to grab objects between their tiny thumb and forefinger. To help your baby see their best, ask your pediatrician how often to get their vision tested, and be sure to call the doctor
And
if
a lot
you're
of
worried
parents
your
don't
little
think
one
about
may have an eye
having
problem.
their baby's vision checked, but if you have any concerns at all, it's really important to start, you know, to call the doctor, and there are ways of having your baby's vision tested, and it's important to catch it early. With sight, we want to think about that, visual stimulation, more of it is not always better. We like to sometimes think about, like Camille was saying, sometimes there's just too much of something, and it can cause adults and kids alike just to be overstimulated and not be able to focus. So a lot of times, instead of thinking of ways to visually stimulate your child, we're thinking of ways to sort of cut out some of the visual stimulation. Like when your child is trying to do homework, you might put up some cardboard or something to sort of block off, some of the other vision sensations in the room. And, for kids who can see, vision is always there. And so, um, almost every sensory activity is going to have a visual component to it. And so I like to tell families, to think about, having your child close their eyes or covering their eyes. And that can really help enhance sort of the other senses. When you're touching something, it might feel a little different if you're not also looking at it. So that's just something to consider. And then, I really like, playing with light up toys in the dark. I love helium balloons, especially for babies. It just helps with so many different things. And you saw in the video that we did earlier that that baby's vision does take time to develop. And so when you're talking about a young baby, newborn, they love faces. They want you to be close up and big, bold colors. And that's to get their attention. And then if you're finding that your baby is having a hard time eating or nursing, it might be because they're visually overstimulated, or maybe there's a lot going on in the room. So those are ways that you can think about, trying to cut off some of those, sitting in a dark room, quiet room, and that kind of a thing. All right. And then I've included a website in case you all want some flashlight games. All right.
I remember seeing a study, I think it was of kindergarten kids, that when, a lot of times when you go into a classroom, there's things hanging in the ceiling and every bit of wall has something on it. And they did a study and they found that kids could really concentrate better when there was less visual stimulation. So I thought that was really interesting to see.
Right. So don't assume that your child's teacher is boring if they have a understimulating room visually.
Yeah, not so much to see. Yeah. All right, so I wanted to talk about movement, and we call that the vestibular system. Let's see. So I was going to talk about babies first, and I think some of us just naturally really enjoy doing movement with our babies, and some of us are really scared of doing movement activities with our baby, that we're really afraid that we're going to hurt our babies. So I just wanted to kind of give you some guidelines to make you feel more comfortable with doing movement with babies. So of course, you're going to keep it safe and be a place where if things go wrong, that you want to be over the couch or over the bed, or where it's carpeted. My son loved to be upside down when he was 2, and we would be upside down all the time. And we have tile in our house, and I will admit, he did slip a couple times and bump his head on the tile. So I don't recommend that. Be over the carpet, be over the couch, do it in a safe place. And you're always gonna watch your baby's cues. I love this picture here. You can see this baby is loving it, and but it'll get to the point where maybe the baby's still laughing and smiling, but you see a change. And that's what we really have to watch for. Like they're still laughing because we're laughing, but they're starting to feel strange. And so that's what we really want to watch for, is when it gets to that point where, you know, you've been on the merry-go-round and you feel too sick, but you don't know how to get off. We want to watch for that and make sure we're not going beyond what the baby can handle.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just going to start nice and slow and gentle, and gradually increase the speed, increase the size of the movement, and see what your baby really enjoys. Some babies are only going to like the slow and gentle, and some babies are only going to like the big and crazy movements. So just like we were talking about the underreactive and overreactive, it really depends on your kid. And there's other kids, those mixed kids, they're the challenging ones, that one day it's going to have to be slow and another day it's going to have to be crazy. So just really keep that flexibility there. So I wanted to show for babies, this is my baby, the monkey baby. Our sense of movement is in our inner ear, and the mechanism is the semicircular canals. And there's 3 sets. So one's upright, one's at another angle, and one's at another angle. And they all are for different directions. So it's really good to be in different positions when you're doing movement. So with the baby, you can do the upright swinging or rocking, and that's what we're doing a lot of the time. Oh, I should probably get where I can get my face on the screen, huh? So we tend to do things naturally upright, but we also want to do sideline too, and put their head on both sides. And this is starting out with the slow and gentle. And if baby Joe enjoys that, then you can start doing the big, crazy movements with the big starts, big stops, because there's fluid in those semicircular canals that sloshes back and forth. And so the more starts and stops you get, the bigger the sensation. It's always an experiment to see what works for your kiddos. So
yeah,
that's the fun one.
I'm sorry, I love this particular activity with blankets and babies. It takes 2 people, but it's just a different type of activity that anybody can do in their home, and obviously rocking and bouncing on a knee and all of those things are great too, but don't forget about the blanket swing.
Yeah, and that's a great way to get movement in a different position too. And one of the other things I wanted to say too is the movements that babies are doing naturally, like rolling across the floor. Rolling is stimulates the same part of the movement system as standing and spinning. So when babies are getting that rolling, they're really working on their movement system too, in that inner ear. And when they're on their hands and knees and rocking back and forth, that movement system is getting tons of stimulation. So those are great ways that babies are seeking out what they need on their own too.
Right. All right.
So for older kids, my favorite thing to do is an obstacle course. And we did this all the time when my kids were little. So for crawlers, it's super easy to make an obstacle course. It can just be your legs sticking out on the floor, or a pillow from the couch, or the pillow from your bed. There's a nice picture of a pillow obstacle course for a little crawler. Let's see the video for the crawling baby.
All right.
I really like they kept it pretty simple in this video. It doesn't have to be long and complicated. It can just be a few things, and do it over and over and over again until they really feel like they've mastered it. Okay, for older kids, I really like just finding things around the house that make fun obstacles. So an example that I've used a lot is just jumping over a broom handle. I've seen great videos of all the great things you can do with masking tape. So starting out simple with making a walking line, then making a zigzag path, making a serpentine path like an S shape. You can do lots of great walking paths just with masking tape. And like I was saying earlier about getting your head in different positions, it's really good to have some up and some down, some under and over, because you want to really get that head in different positions to get a maximum impact. So getting down to go through a tunnel, if you have a tunnel, but if you don't, like going under a chair, under a piano bench, just putting the mop over 2 chairs to make a tunnel, or a blanket tunnel, whatever works. And then getting in that rolling is really great too. Laying down on their side, stretching out their arms and legs and being straight as a stick and rolling is another great part of an obstacle course. And I think, just picking for like a 2-year-old, I think like 3 obstacles is plenty, because it's too hard for them to remember all the steps. And for older kids, you can do 5 or 6. I saw when I was doing research for this, I saw videos of people who made an obstacle course like all the way from their front door through their whole entire house. I don't want you spending that much time making an obstacle course. I think just pick a few things, and this next video shows a really great obstacle course where they just are on their living room rug. There's 4 obstacle courses and they're going around in a circle. Like it took 2 to 5 minutes to set that up. And if you integrate like a puzzle in there, or like they pick up the puzzle pieces at one end and put it into the puzzle board at the other end, or coloring, like pick up a crayon in one place and the coloring page is partway through and they color. And especially if there's an activity that they really have a hard time sticking with it, using an obstacle course and integrating that activity into the obstacle course is really a good way to get more repetitions. I did see some obstacle courses where people like incorporated putting on a shirt or a coat, and I thought that was a really good way of getting lots and lots of repetitions on something that can be kind of boring. So obstacle courses can be really wonderful. And for older kids that are old enough to think like, what kind of obstacle could we use and how could we use this as an obstacle? It gives them a really good chance to brainstorm and problem solve. I've seen kids, take something really floppy and try to lean it on the couch and like, okay, try it out. How's it gonna work? And it's really good for them cognitively to think of to do those experiments and test their ideas and try to figure out how to really make make them work the way they want them to. So that's all the obstacle course stuff. My next favorite movement game is the sandwich game. Oh no, it's not movement, but it is working on body sensations. And Patty talked earlier about interoception, those internal sensations. And the best way of getting people to tune into their internal sensations is by incorporating touch and movement at the same time. So the sandwich game, it gives lots of squishing and lots of touch. And it's when your kiddo lays down on the floor and you get a pillow and pretend it's bread. And you take the pillow and squish on their arms and squish on their trunk and squish on their legs and say, okay, what do you want on your sandwich now? Okay, you want some cheese? We'll squish on some cheese. And you want some ketchup? Let's put on some ketchup. And that's a way to get them to stick with it for longer too, is by making it really fun and using their imagination. And it's a really great game for getting focused and get into that just right place where you're ready for what comes next. And then the burrito game, you can do with one blanket or you can do with a whole pile of blankets. So your kiddo would start at one end and you would lay them on the blanket so that their head was sticking out. And some kids like their arms out and some kids like their arms in. And then you roll them up as tight as you can in that blanket. So they're really like hugged by the blanket. And again, you can say, oh, what do you want in your burrito? And give them some squishes while they're in there. But some kids want out right away, like they can't stand being in the blanket. So they roll back out again. So that game is so great because you're getting the rolling for the movement. You're getting the touch of the blanket. So you can play around with, is it a fuzzy blanket? Is it a bumpy blanket? Is it a smooth blanket? And then you're getting that deep pressure, that squishing sensation too. So you get so many different sensations in one activity. And if you do a whole stack of blankets, you can roll across and then grab another blanket and roll back the other way and have layer after layer after layer of blankets if your kid really likes that tight sensation.
Right. All right. So for hearing, a lot of times we don't really think about this as much. I mean, it's just such a big part of our everyday life. But we think about music and talking and all of those things, but there's a lot of really fun games that you can play with hearing. And I think it's just always a great way to just help kids be more aware of their bodies and their environment. And part of it is just really having parents pointing things out as things happen from day to day. And some activities you can do is you can make simple musical instruments. You can see in the photo, there's it looks like the mom has a shaker. The little girl has, is beating with sticks or a wooden spoon. The little boy's playing some kind of a guitar. And you can also use real instruments that are kid-proof, a piano, or if you can supervise with a real guitar, those are always great. I always like to go on a sound hunt around the house or in the neighborhood and listen for different sounds. And if it's really quiet, you just might be able to hear the clock ticking, or you can hear the appliance, you might hear the refrigerator just humming, or if the dishwasher's going. You might hear a horn honking or a siren, or you might hear, a dog barking. And it's fun to see if you can get your child to listen for sounds and make you aware of them. And so it's always a good idea to, cup your ears so that they really get the cue, a visual cue of, okay, listen to the dog. And you might, then when you hear the dog and just, pointing those kinds of things out in your day-to-day routine. You don't even have to have like, oh, we're going to do sensory play right now with hearing. You just incorporate it into your everyday life. If you're driving and you hear a siren, talk about it and then point to it as it goes by. And then obviously, you know, a lot of families like to do singing and just talking, and you can practice, singing loud, and you can whisper and see what kids think about whispering. And it's always great to talk about whispering so that I think it's good practice for kids to be able to lower the volume of their voice. A lot of parents have a hard time with kids being too loud. And so one technique you can do is just whisper back. And oftentimes they'll whisper too.
Mhm.
So you might just try, whispering at times to see if they can pay attention to that. And then just making lots, even if you're not reading, even if you're just looking at books and pointing out pictures, make the sounds that you see, the birds chirping or the dog barking or the fire truck or whatever it is. Just, really emphasize the different noises that they make. Encourage your kids to make those noises. And then I've included a link here, and there's lots of different listening games, but this one in particular is fun because it just goes through and it plays different sounds, and then your child guesses what it is. And so it's just kind of a fun thing to do to get kids to be more aware of their surroundings and their hearing. So I also really like just kids musical instruments. I have never had a kid yet that doesn't love marching around the living room, shaking a maraca or tapping on a Tupperware container or something. It's just always a fun activity. And then, putting on some music and off you go. All righty. Hmm. All right.
All right, well, next we were going to talk about touch. And for touch, my favorite thing to do is the sensory bins. And since it's almost Valentine's Day right now when we're doing this presentation, I loved this picture of the Valentine sensory bin. And, again, I think you can do this really simply by getting a couple things from the dollar store. But I love things making super simple. So really you only need the rice and you don't even have to color it. And it could be dried pasta or dried beans. It can be sand or water, whatever is easiest for you or cheapest at the store that day. It doesn't have to be too crazy. So it is fun. I love it. I see it at preschools all the time. They will do rainbow colors of pasta or rice, and you can Google that and find it real easily. So a lot of times when I introduce a sensory bin, we'll just start out with, we'll go with rice since that's what the picture is, and just play with the rice, and the kids just wanna run it through the fingers and feel that sensation. And if it's one of those really sensitive kids, they're just going to want to touch it. And if they don't even want to touch it, then we'll just use the spoons or whatever makes them feel comfortable. And they might accidentally touch it while they're playing with the spoons. And that's great. You just want to ease into it and keep it fun and comfortable. And then usually once they feel really comfortable with the rice, then we start putting the little toys in, and you can hide the toys and have them dig it out. And again, you can incorporate puzzles, hiding the puzzle pieces in there, finding the pieces to put in the puzzle. And I always get the question with this one, how do you deal with the mess? And I always learn from other families, and one of the families I worked with would always put like just a cheap plastic tablecloth underneath, and it really, most of it lands on the tablecloth. You can just pick it up, fold it in half, and dump the rice back in. So I loved that idea. And if you play in the kitchen where there's not carpet probably, then it's so much easier to sweep it up than if you're on the carpet and you have to vacuum or be picking those tiny little rice out of the carpet. And I think the other thing is too, to really have boundaries. Like if I'm playing rice bin with a kid I say you need to keep it in the box. If they fling out a little bit by accident, that's okay. And I remind them, keep it in the box. If they can't keep it in the box, or, you can see they're purposely not keep it in the box. Okay, it's time to put it away, time to do something else.
Mhm.
And after you do that a few times, they get a lot better about keeping it in the box.
That's been my experience also, that kids really like to play with this typically, and so they're pretty motivated to listen to the boundaries once they've learned them. So,
Yeah, definitely.
all right.
Oh, and the other thing I was going to say about the sensory bins is it's amazing the availability of sensory products now. So
Mm.
there were on Etsy, people pre-made sensory bins for you and you could order them. So if you really don't have time to even buy a box and dump some rice in it, or if you really want the fun themed ones, they have so many great choices out there. So you can just order one and have it all ready for you. So the next thing was, Patty, I have to say, you have such great pictures on here. The next thing was bathtub play. So I really love, for the kids that really hate getting sticky and they hate having stuff on their hands, I love doing it in the bathtub. So like food purees or shaving cream or those are the big ones. Finger paints are all really great to do in the bathtub. They can rub it all over the side of the tub, stick their hands in the water immediately and wash it off. And they're so much less anxious and so much more ready to try new textures when they're in the tub and they can wash it off immediately. And again, you can start out with just a tiny little squirt of shaving cream. And when they get more comfortable, get the big piles for them to rub all over the place. And a lot of kids have really felt more comfortable with that. And water play is always fun. And if you don't not ready to be putting food in the tub, then the other great thing in the bathtub is just having the cups and spoons. Kids that aren't great with using a spoon yet to feed themselves, it really takes off the pressure if you can have a spoon in the tub and they're just playing with water and dumping it in a container or pouring containers back and forth. Sometimes it's that arm rotation that makes it, if they don't have that arm rotation yet, that's part of why it's so hard to get that food to their mouth. So that pouring back and forth can really help with that too. And the kitchen sink's the same thing. If you don't want their whole body in there with all that mess, then the kitchen sink is a great place to play too. You can get all messy, have the water right there, and it really reduces the stress. There are all kinds of recipes out there. You can make your own Play-Doh. You can make gack. You can make oob, oob, oh, oobleck, thanks. It wouldn't come to me. I mean, I have pages and pages of recipes. Peanut butter Play-Doh and Kool-Aid Play-Doh. There's so many fun things to do. And lots of variety is really great for the kids. And that, when they're old enough, they can really enjoy like measuring and dumping and stirring and really helping make those recipes too.
I just wanted to also say, we like Camille was saying earlier, we've included some really colorful, eye-catching photos, but you know, please, it's more important just if all you can do is just get the pasta out, do that, because babies really don't care. Kids
Yeah.
really don't care. They just, it's if going the extra step of coloring it, or I mean, I included this rainbow thing of chia seeds because that is such it's like this new, I don't know, nobody ever thought about it before, but it's recently people are using a lot of chia seeds because they're safe if kids decide to eat it. And it's got this great sort of slimy feel to it. But, are we really going to go through all the effort it takes to make a rainbow? Probably not. But so
Not
don't
me.
right. Don't let these slides sort of overwhelm you. If it's more just, for the presentation, but, and we've included a lot of some different websites at the end of the presentation that can just be a starting place for you to find some more recipes and do some things.
Yeah. Um, So what the next thing I put on here was to go outside for less cleanup. One time my sister gave my kids kinetic sand and I really hated that stuff, but my kids absolutely loved it. I just could not deal with cleaning it up inside the house. So the solution we came up with was taking it outside and then it could just blow away and I didn't have to deal with the cleanup. So I know that's often really hard for people to get by with, that like playing with food and letting kids rub their food all over the place and all over themselves. If the mess is too much for you, just think about where could I handle this? In the bathtub, outside, in their play pool, what's going to make it manageable for you.
And you
um,
can also time it, when it's almost bath time anyway. Um, you know,
yeah,
I remember, gosh, after the kids got out of the bath, you didn't really want to do a messy play, but if you knew they were getting ready to go take a bath, that might be a good time to do some messy play so that you can just clean them up and get the job
definitely. Yeah. um this time of year is so great to get out in the snow, and it's so fun to see kids like the first time when they're out in the snow. Like first they're paralyzed and then they want to eat it and then they are amazed at all the different textures of the snow. But we don't always have time to like bundle up our kids and take them outside, so it's great too to just to take a big bowl, get a bunch of snow, put them in the kitchen with a towel, and they can still get that great sensory play. So I just wanted to mention that. Um,
especially babies who, uh, like Camille said, they might not tolerate being outside in the snow for very long, but they'll tolerate it a lot longer, if it's in front of them on the kitchen floor in a bowl.
yeah, definitely. And some kids just get paralyzed by those snowsuits, like they can't move. So just bringing it into them, it makes it more accessible. So I think we kind of got the idea across already that we want kids to get messy. We want them to have those experiences. And I'll admit, when I was a young parent, I had a hard time dealing with a mess. And when my son started going to preschool, the first 3 months, all he wanted to do was be at the sensory table. So that was kind of my wake up call. Like we did Play-Doh all the time, but I didn't let him do all this other stuff. And it's really important for their development. So let them get messy, let them play in the mud and stomp in the puddles and get sand in their hair.
Yeah.
It cleans up. And I was mostly thinking of the sensory bins but I bet there's all kinds of stuff on Pinterest, but there are people that have amazing ideas that are so fun. If you love doing a project, check out Pinterest for some more great ideas for sensory touch activities.
And for kids who may not be ready to touch something with their fingers, there are a lot of activities where you can put something in um, a Ziploc bag and they can touch it that way just to get them used to it. And then you can little by little try to um, get get the noodles out or the rice out or whatever it is if they're really having a hard time touching it.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a really good way to get started and easy to do.
yeah.
And just seeing it helps them feel more comfortable. The more they see it, the
Hmm.
more comfortable they'll be with touching it.
Right. All right. So here's taste. Um, you know, this is maybe a little bit controversial. A lot of times, families, I mean, it's always fun to give your baby their first taste of lemon. I just thought this picture was so adorable. It's always fun to do that. But one of the things that there's probably a lot of different ways to think about this, and if you're not sure, check with your doctor. But in my reading, I found that there's sort of a window where kids are most open to new flavors from about 4 to 7 months, and that's where they'll try just about anything. And even if your child is still exclusively breastfeeding or on the bottle, um, the idea of just letting them just taste. I'm not saying to start feeding them necessarily a certain amount, but just letting them taste it, letting them taste some different things. I think it's a great idea. And one of the things that I've read about too is that the more familiar a child is with the taste, the more likely they are to like it. And so, like, down below I have there reading, liking foods is a product of familiarity.
Mhm.
And so I really like to encourage parents to, yeah, you might want to start off your baby, when they're starting their solids with, you know, uh, there's lots of different ways to do it, but adding some milk to a little bit of the rice cereal, that's kind of typical, or but be willing to think a little bit outside the box, and not necessarily to get calories, but just for the tasting aspect. You can start this pretty young. And you know there's some people are worried about allergies. Obviously, if you have a particular allergy in the family, you might talk to your doctor about it, but um, usually there's not going to be an issue with that. And so um, don't be afraid to try. And if you are nervous, you can talk to your doctor about it. But I just want to encourage parents to let kids try new tastes. And
Yeah.
I think it's really important to talk about the foods while you're eating them. You can talk about the color and talk about, ooh, that's salty, or ooh, that's sweet. And just start helping them to be able to identify, even if they can't say the words or if they don't understand the words, just starting to identify how things taste. It's fun with kids who are a little bit older to play guessing games of, ooh, what is that? Blindfolding them and let them taste, like, what do you think that is? And maybe you could even have them, I like this idea of putting them in a muffin tin, some different things. And I wouldn't necessarily put the labels on it, for little kids because they're not reading, but just some different ideas that they can see, and maybe they could point to the things that they think it is. And then it's always fun to, you can try. One of the things that's scary for a lot of families in trying some of these sensory activities is that kids put things in their mouths. And babies especially. So, think about painting with yogurt, or, like I said, there's so many different recipes that you can try that are totally safe. I mean, there's even food-based food dyes, and if you don't want to use, uh, the there are more natural dyes, like with beets and carrots and that kind of thing. If you want to use food coloring. And I also really encourage families to let kids help prepare food and taste things along the way, and see, what does it taste like before we cook it, what does it taste like after we cook it. Let's say you burn the toast. Oh, let's taste. How does it taste when something's burned? I mean, just really talking about all of those different kinds of things, um, I think is helpful and fun. And then you might, for older kids, try pinching their nose to see what it's like to try to taste something without the smell. Um, and we know, how different that can be. And it might be sort of a new sensation for older kids to try that out. So, all right, let's see what's next here. And then smell. This is another one that I don't think families think about that often, in terms of sensory play. And it's just something else to just sort of think a little bit outside the box. The sense of smell is very powerful and has a very strong tie to memory and taste. You all can probably imagine, when maybe your grandmother used to wear a particular type of perfume, and when you smell that again, it just takes you right back to her house. Or there's just amazing links between memory and smells. So some ideas that you can do are, there's some olfactory bottles that you can do. This is kind of a typical Montessori activity. You can gather little spice bottles. You can either use the actual spices. You can put cotton balls in there with a little bit of pickle juice or maple syrup or lemon or coffee, or essential oils, and just let the kids smell them. and you can just talk about them. And that's probably for a little bit older toddler. You can also try to include smell into, like, when you're making Play-Doh, you can use a Kool-Aid packet, or you can use some essential oils in the Play-Doh to just give it a different smell. And then I think it's really important to talk to babies and kids again about the environmental smells, like when you're making coffee or frying bacon, and just really talking about that. Oh, what does that smell like? Oh, that trash is sure stinky. And if you're playing outside in the grass or after it's rained, all those different things. I just think it's a way to encourage language and just body awareness and awareness of the environment. So that's how I would incorporate smell into play. And then last but not least, here we have included some recipes, and there's a gazillion different websites out there, but these are just some fun ideas all about sensory bins that Camille was talking about. And then there's edible recipes for infants and toddlers, and just some fun sensory play activities on that last one. So, all righty. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you have any questions, please go to the Las Cumbres website and look for the Ask a Specialist. And there's a form there that you can fill out with your questions, and somebody will get back to you to help you answer those. All right. Thanks.